Hey everybody, this is going to be kind of a long video because I'm trying to do two things at the same time. The first part of this video, I'm going to sort of walk through some of the um, changes and things that are happening on the calendar for the class from here until the end. And just point out a couple of key details about what things are due and we'll be doing things and stuff like that. So watch this part right now. Okay, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, I'm looking at the student view. I just updated the schedule for the class today. And let me talk a little bit about where we're at and where we've been. Look at all the stuff that we've done this semester. Oh my goodness, it's quite a bit. So we are here talking about Tales of the Public Domain, and that discussion's been going well. Monday, you need to tell me more about your contributions to the Social Media Collaborative, and you need to sort of sign on. You need to sign on for that website. Now, everyone should have received an invitation to it, okay? And the way that I sent those out, just to sort of make sure that we're on the right page here, let me get into the admin section for this. And I'm just going to show this to you in terms of users. These are all the people who have emailed so far as contributors. So you should have received an email invitation. And I know that this works in part because I can see many of you have started to make contributions. So for example, here's a contribution, I believe this is from V about this particular article, okay? So everyone should have got an email that allows them to contribute to this. If you didn't get this email, you need to contact me, or if you're having other problems with getting this to work, you need to contact me. In any event, you need to have your contributions to the Social Media Collaborative Reader together, and you need to start posting them to this website right here, okay? We're going to talk this week a little bit more about the Hypertext Project pre-text stuff. I'll add a reading or add a little discussion space for this. And we'll talk about WordPress here in this next video, and I'll add some discussion to that. But just to get into the week after next, I guess. So this is the week 12, the week of Easter break, spring recess. We're going to start getting into some discussions. We're moving away from some of the discussions about the Social Media Collaborative Online Reader and some of this graduate student presentation. So graduate students in the course know that they need to go out and interview someone who is a professional in the field, and they're going to talk about those interviews and when the schedule is indicated. And these interview discussions will become readings for the class. In other words, we're going to start talking about Emily's and V's interviews that they conducted starting on Monday, March 26th. And we will have a discussion space that I'll link to here where everyone will have a chance to offer their discussion thoughts on the interviews that Emily and V did. This will continue through the week of April, the week 13. We have some more from the other graduate students. You see them there. And these will essentially be the readings for those weeks. Meanwhile, what you'll also be doing is finishing up the second Code Academy exercises and debriefing. Remember, you were supposed to finish another, or at least start another exercise in Code Academy, and then you need to write a brief essay that sort of describes your experiences, and you need to post that by Thursday, March 29th. Note, we're not going to be doing a peer review for this essay, but we will be doing some peer reviews towards the end of the semester. Okay, so we have these discussions here, and you'll also notice by here you're going to want to start really digging into the second round of the usability testing for your website. This is where you need to find a couple of users. Could be members of your family, could be people you live with, could be whoever is easily convenient for you to work with in terms of a subject, and run them through some usability tests on the website that you're making from your text. So you're transferring your text into a hypertext, okay? Now we get into some of the due date stuff. April 9th, you need to be done with the Social Media Collaborative Reader contributions, and you need to have a reflective essay about the assignment that's due today. Today it's due here. Okay, we're going to do a peer review exercise on so that essay is due right here, and that's just essentially a brief reflection on the things that you've agreed to contribute to the Social Media Collaborative Reader. We're not going to do a peer review essay for this part of things. We're going to just be you can turn in an essay for that. We will be doing a peer review for the second part of the usability test hypertext thing, beginning also on the end of the day on Monday, April 9th. So what this means is that by the end of the day on April 9th, you need to have together the website itself, that is whatever it is you converted from a text into a hypertext, and you also need to have the essay that accompanies this, the reflective essay part of things. We discussed the usability process and your thinking behind how you converted your text into a hypertext site. Okay. Also beginning by then is we're going to have a peer review discussion about your writing for the web portfolio, which I'll get to a little bit in the second half of this video. But by then you should be in a position where you have a lot of that work already done. Okay. Both of these projects, this is a pretty key date then, in other words, is getting this stuff in on April 9th. Then what we do this part of the week for the week 14 is essentially peer review kinds of exercises. And then what happens at the end of the semester is everything is due. So the second part of the usability text hypertext project is due the end of the day on Monday, April 16th. The writing for the web portfolio is due at the end of the day on Monday, April 16th. The last day of classes, in case we run into some sort of delay or something like that, is actually April 17th. And the end of time for this semester, which I'll talk about at the end of the semester, is actually April 20th, 5 p.m. Michigan time. But everything is really due in this last week. Okay? So that's basically an overview of where we're going from pretty much here until the end of the semester. A few details need to be filled in there, but I think you get the idea. Now, let me talk about WordPress a little bit. We haven't really spent a lot of time working through some of the nuances of WordPress, in part because I wanted to make sure everybody had a handle on HTML and CSS. I wanted to make sure everybody had a handle on something else having to do with Codecademy. Remember, you're supposed to do one of these other exercises. And I wanted people to start thinking conceptually about what their website might end up looking like. Now we're at a place where it's time to start thinking a little bit more about how WordPress works and how you might use it for not just your web-based portfolio for the class, but maybe even for your website as well. Just to back up a step, I think it's important for a class like this one that everyone gets at least a little bit more familiar with the details of how WordPress works than just posting stuff and not making any changes to the style or the default pages or anything like that. And the reason is because the class is called Writing for the Web, and at least as important as learning HTML and CSS is learning the basic concept of how these content management systems work. And that's what WordPress really is. It's a software that you can use for blogging, and people do that, but it's really a software that's designed to make it easy to create content that can be put together on a website that can then be served up in a dynamic fashion and that can be altered easily and things like that. It's not rocket science to do, but it is a little bit more complicated than just, uploading something and walking away from it. Now, my experience has been that, like learning Codecademy, like learning other things like other coding exercises, that it's really something that you need to explore and learn as opposed to me just walking you through various steps. Walking you through various steps is pretty limited because you have to be able to follow the steps the way that I show you how to do them, where you might have your own way of doing things. But the most important thing about it is that the details of how the software works keeps changing. I mean, every time WordPress updates something, the instructions I'm about to give you might get a little bit out of date. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some basic things, but I'm also going to suggest some ways in which you can learn more about WordPress yourself. And the basic way is ask Google. If you do a search for how do I create a page in WordPress, you will get help guides on how to do this. And my hope is that people can do some of these searches and include some links for these different things in the discussion below so that we can start piecing together some different resources to help folks through WordPress. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm going to go over a few things here in this next however many minutes this takes me to do. I'm going to show you the basics of page versus post, which I think is important, the basics of how the menu structure in WordPress works, and also the basic structure of how themes in WordPress works. Okay. This might take a while, so you can either, if you like, I already know how to do all that stuff, I'm going to skip that part, that's fine. If you want to find other resources for how to do that, that's fine as well. But these are all things that you will find probably useful as you start to put together your website. And I'll be using my website that I sample WordPress portfolio as an example to work through. So I'm using the same software that you are using this semester right now. Okay, so watch. WordPress web portfolio example for 444. And I've changed a little bit since I began this semester, but it's pretty much the same thing. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to think about for yours. So I have the name of my name up here. I have a tagline, which I'll show you that actually fills that in. And then I have links to the project. So I have usability text to hypertext project. There's the Codecademy exercises, and that's where I have a link to this. And this is the social media project. This is where I post stuff about that. Also, you'll notice when I go back to the home page here, I have a picture of myself. You don't necessarily have to have a picture, but something that identifies me. I have some biographical information. Again, how personally you want to get it's kind of up to you, but something that identifies yourself. And then I have some important EMU links. So I have about Department of English, things like this, some stuff about me. Okay, so in other words, I've taken the website with WordPress and I've customized it and things like that. So let me show you some of the things that I've done here and how it works. First thing I always recommend to people, if you haven't done this yet, I find the easiest way to edit things and access things on your website to do the administrative stuff is to do this interface as opposed to the interface you get when you just log into WordPress. So I've gone to my website, Krause444portfolio.wordpress.com/WPadmin. Okay, and what I get is this interface here. Now let me start by showing you some stuff about posts versus pages. Okay, a post, like a blog post, is, and here's some examples of that. I'll just click on this one by way of example, blah, blah, blah. A blog post is something that generally is updated, time-stamped, and when you keep a blog, the most current post is the thing that shows up first. Okay, that's usually the way that the blog is. But you'll notice, for example, that again on my site, just to sort of keep this space here and show that to you in another window, you'll notice that on my site, my first page doesn't have a post. In fact, there's no places on here where I have posts because I have this all set up with pages. And by setting the site up with pages, it's easier for me to manage how the menus work and manage how users interact with it. And it's also easier for me to create a document that is akin to a standalone web page. Okay, so let me show you that. If you go to, there's on the menu over here, you've got posts, but then you also have down here pages. Okay, now each one of these documents is a page, and you notice that you'll probably recognize the name, the Codecademy exercises, the social media reader project, usability text hyper project, and also the welcome page. And you'll notice that there it says front page. I'll show you that in a second. And this is the information in this page that shows up right here. Okay. So how you do that to make a page is pretty simple. All you do, again, on our pages, is just add new. Now I'm going to add a new page here in a second, but I'm going to show you something else in terms of how this is set up. These pages here are set up in terms of the menu here. Okay, so usability text hypertext, we keep that in mind. We'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to click on this one here just to show you this. This is, again, the page for the usability text and hypertext. And as you know, that's an assignment that actually has a couple of different parts. There is the essay brief response that you wrote about working through the quasi-usability experiment that we did in looking at EMU websites. But then there's also your text to hypertext project. So I probably want to set all these things up in a way that, are together. So let me show you how to do that with menus. So this page is referred to, this page attributes thing is what's important here. This is referred to as the parent page, okay? and it means that there's no parent to this particular page, and it's on the same level as these other pages. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new page, add new, because it occurs to me that I want to have places to put the usability test for the EMU part of it and my own text to hypertext thing. So I'm going to create a page called EMU usability test. And this is where I would have that essay. Again, this is what you did earlier in the semester. But then I'm going to go over here where it says parent. And I'm actually going to make the parent of this page be the usability text and hypertext page. Okay. I'm also going to make the order for this 1 because I want that to show up first. And I'm going to hit publish. Now I'm also going to create a new page, add new page, and I'm going to call this one text to hypertext essay. Then this is where that essay reflecting on the text to hypertext project would be. And again, I'm going to make parent. It's going to be the usability text to hypertext is going to be the parent. I'm going to make this one in order 2. Okay. Okay, so let me show you how the menu part of this actually works, because what you need to do to make these pages work under these menus is you don't have to do it this way, but the way I have done this and the way I'd recommend this is to set up a customizable menu. And let me show you how to do that. So again, these are the pages. I'm going to look under Appearance, and I'm going to select where it says Menus. Okay, is the first thing you actually need to do is create a menu. Now, I already have a menu created. It's called Menu 1. But to create a new menu, click where it says Create New Menu, and you give it a name like My Menu or whatever, and then click Create. And then you can start adding these elements, these pages that you have. You can do it with posts and things like that too, actually, but it's a lot easier, in my view, and a lot better if you do it with pages. So that's what I'm showing you here right now. Now, right now I've got these, and you can see there's a relationship. This is called Menu 1. You can have actually multiple menus if you wanted to. And then this is called Usability, Text, Hypertext, Welcome, and Social Media. And you'll see that that corresponds to what's at the top of the page, okay? I can do stuff like, for example, I could take that and put that there. And then if I save this, then it will change here, right? The other thing is, but what I want to do is I've created these new pages, and let's see here. I'm going to click View All, and I have the usability text to hypertext project, and then there are the EMU usability test and the text to hypertext project. I want them to be part of the usability text to hypertext thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click these two boxes here, okay, and then I'm going to click Add to Menu. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these underneath the usability thing. Oops, and I got to make sure it's not two underneath, it's both underneath there, because if I had done that, then it would have messed that up. But that's how it looks. And I save that menu. And once it's saved, you can see that I've got these drop-down menus here. Okay. I started talking about this a little bit because underneath the appearance window in terms of themes. But before I get there, let me also explain how I got this to happen, how my welcome page is the default page and not a blog post. That is underneath the control called settings. Okay, There's lots of stuff you can do with settings. Like, for example, the tagline, an example for my students to follow, that's how I get that text there. If you still have something like a new WordPress website, this is where you can change those kinds of things. And I can change things like the time zone and all that kind of stuff. That's all useful. The writing thing, you probably aren't going to need to do much with this. If you want to change like how emoticons show up and things like that, that's fine. The reading part, though, how people read your site, that's one thing you might want to change, especially if you want your website to look like mine with a static homepage. So if I had it as collected as, say, your latest post, I'm going to click that just for the time being because that's sort of the default. And then there's a bunch of other stuff to change here that I'm not going to talk about, but you can, you can decide if you want to. And I hit Save Changes. Then what should happen here when I reload this is that now my home page isn't the welcome page at all. It's these default blog posts, okay? That's how yours is probably set up. So all I got to do to change that is click where it says a static home page, and then I select the page that I want it to be my home page, in this case, the welcome page. I save the changes. And then when I go back over here and reload this, yay, it worked. So that's how you make a static page your home page for your website, which I think is a really good idea, especially if you're not planning on blogging. If you're not planning on posting regular updates, but you just want to have a website that has your portfolio information, then you probably want to have just a static page like this. Now there's a bunch of other stuff here. You can play around with this. I'm going to actually go back to the appearances section. Okay, and before we get to this part, there's tons of stuff that you can look at to customize things. So I'm going to click on, for example, where it says customize, and I can do stuff like if I want to change the colors, I could do that, or pick my own color like that, and I go back to the default because I don't want to do that. I can make other changes here in terms of the title of the website and things like that in this area if I want to. I can make some changes to menus here, although like I said, I think that the other area it's easier to fix that, but if you want to like try to experiment with this one. There's a thing called widgets, and widgets basically are things you put in the sidebar. So for example, this search element, this calendar element, these text elements here, those are all widgets. Content, and you can play around with some of that in terms of how those things work. Tons and tons of stuff there that you can do under that area of the customize. There's other areas that deal with widgets. For example, this area is how I deal with widgets, and I have the sidebar and things like this. Tons and tons of things there. But I want to go back to the themes thing just for a second. If I click on the themes, a theme is basically just a sort of overall layout and color scheme and things like that of your website. It's kind of like the CSS, if you will, of your website. It explains how it doesn't change the content, but it does change the way it's looked. Now, right now, my theme is 2016, and that's important to remember. I'll explain why in a moment. Okay, so I'm at the themes page here, and just to sort of show you how this works in terms of selecting a different theme, I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of argument, click around here a little bit. Let's see what the newest themes are. I'm clicking free because I don't want to spend any money on any of this, of course. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to select, say, this one. This is called Karuna or something like that. If I push, I'm just going to push activate to show you what it means here. And then when I reload my page, I get a completely different looking thing, and you can see how there's different elements of it. Like the tagline is now up here. There's drop-down menus underneath this and stuff like that. Now I could work with this. I could change this in terms of the picture and stuff like that. But I don't like this theme, obviously, so I'm gonna go back to what I did before. And this is actually one of the things I wanted to say at the beginning here. Before you do what I'm doing, make sure you remember what theme you started with, because if you want to keep the theme that you've got, there's no good way to get back to the previous theme unless you remember. Does that make sense? So in other words, I was 2016. That was the theme I had before. I have happily found that again. And now when I go back to my website, I can push reload and I get that theme back. There are, like I said, a lot of different themes. And the theme choices that you make basically have a lot to do with the kinds of things, the kind of way that you want to sort of present yourself, right? So let's take an example like, say, this one here, the girl in green theme, okay? Um, if if I'm trying to present myself as sort of, you know, a jazzy, new, fresh, dancey, hip kind of young person kind of thing, I mean that might make some sense. Um, but if you are my student and I'm a professor, and I'm trying to present myself as a professor, and a male professor at that, and I had this as a theme, you might say, "Boy, that doesn't look quite right. Doesn't This theme doesn't quite fit with this content, right?" So you want to make sure there's a match between the theme that you pick and the theme that how you want to present yourself. The other thing about this theme is a good example in terms of how different themes do different things. This theme doesn't allow for the kind of menus that I have across the top. I can only do some of this stuff by the side here. So all of my links that I have up there are totally lost, and I don't know if there's a good way to get them back in this theme. So again, not all themes are created equal. So I'm going to go back to where I was before my friend 2016, and everything will be restored. Okay, I think that's it for now. It's a lot to parse through, and like I said, one of the best things that you can do to figure out how to use some WordPress stuff is, well, first off, just experiment with it, because if you haven't played around with your WordPress settings too much at this point, now is the time to do so, because that's how you learn how to do it. And sometimes it means, like I did, breaking things a little bit. The second thing is that do a search on Google. There's a pretty good chance that you'll find answers to your questions there. And if you do find answers to your questions on how to do things with WordPress, post them below. Share them with everybody. Okay, see you online.